Today we'll be talking about a ship I've been waiting for quite some time. In fact, my very favorite ship to play on World of Warships PC, the legendary tier German Battlecruiser Schlieffen. We finally have it, and I've got a lot to say about it. But before I really get into talking about the ship, I want to talk about how you actually have to obtain it. Because I think it's kind of a problem, and I think a lot of people are probably going to be unhappy about it. The Schlieffen is only available for you if you complete the requisite Bureau project, but the only way to actually obtain that project is by either spending 5,000 doubloons to buy it in the store, or else buying it for 30 million credits. I think kind of a steep price just to obtain a project that you'll then have to wait, say about 3 months for at best to complete, maybe a lot longer if you don't really interact with the Bureau projects the way I don't. And while I don't necessarily mind this being behind a Bureau project, because frankly every other legendary tier ship is, I think the steep asking price just to participate in the Bureau project is a little much, and probably a little bit prohibitive. I think maybe Wargaming doesn't want to see this ship in huge prevalent numbers on the high seas. And there's a reason for that, I suppose, which is that the Schlieffen is a ridiculous damage-dealing platform. It's got 8 420 millimeter guns, the same dank caliber you would find on the GK. Doesn't have a lot of hit points, only 76,000. And the armor is not especially spectacular. It's certainly nowhere near as heavily armored as the main line of German battleships. It's got overmatchable plating on both its bow and stern, 27 millimeters in size, although the bow does have a ridiculously huge icebreaker that more or less extends all the way up from the waterline to the very top of the bow. There's barely any 25 millimeter plating there, and of course the side armor is robust enough to ricochet even the thickest, or not thickest, biggest battleship caliber shells. Schlieffen also has secondaries. That's sort of the calling card of this ship, and one of the things that allows it to have such a fantastically ridiculous damage output. These secondaries, with this build, that includes the secondary module and a rank 16 hipper as one of the inspirations, can range out to 12.1 kilometers. If you want to build for full secondaries, you can get these things well over 12.5 kilometers with both Hipper, Haruna, and the secondary mod. Of course, I have not elected to do that. I'm using Megatron as the commander on this build, in large part because Megatron has very, very good anti-fire skills, Revocation Protocol being the chief one. That reduces fire burn time by up to 20% when fully maxed. So I've got him on the Schlieffen for that purpose, since the Schlieffen, like the Russian battleships and the rest of the Battlecruiser line, comes with a limited amount of damage control party consumables with a quick reload. There's only 3 of them that you can use through the entire game, so anything in your commander build that you can do to reduce fire damage is probably something you should do. Revocation Protocol is good for that, so is the Fight Fire with Fire skill if you take it over the skill that everybody always takes in their battleship, Will to Rebuild. I'm not using that, of course. I'm using Fight Fire with Fire, and I think it's useful for the Schlieffen and the German battlecruisers. But there's still one more weapon system on the Schlieffen to talk about, which is the Torpedoes. They have a range of 8 kilometers, only a 54 knot speed, but they hit for 16,000 damage, and, they're fairly stealthy too, 1.2 km detectability by sea. And even though they're slow, they're pretty easy to hit at close range. Just ask this Musashi, who's about to take 2 of them as he comes around the corner. And you know what? I haven't really said this, but the guns on the Schlieffen, they're not too bad. We Citadel the Musashi there. They're not exactly the most pinpoint accurate guns you've ever seen in your life, of course, but they're better than the main line of German battleship guns. Certainly better and more accurate and more consistent than the dank 420mm guns found on something like the Große Kurfürst. The Schlieffen, though, is also ridiculously fast. It's got a top speed of 34.1 knots on this build, and the concealment is the other highlight. Although here is where we actually get into some differences between the ship on World of Warships Legends and its counterpart on PC. The Schlieffen has in fact been nerfed in two significant ways in the translation from PC to Legends. For the record, Schlieffen is like my very favorite ship to play on PC. I think I've already said that, but I've played it a lot there, and I'm pretty familiar with it. The nerfs that we have here for it are not necessarily nerfs. I think are bad things to have happened to this ship for this game, because it is a little bit potent on PC. And a lot of you probably are not going to think at least one of these nerfs is that big of a deal, but the concealment. On PC, with a full concealment commander build, which is the standard build for battleships on that game, you get the concealment expert skill and, of course, the concealment module. With those two things on World of Warships PC, the Schlieffen's concealment can get down to an astounding 12.6 kilometers by sea, and its secondaries can reach out to 12.5. So there's only a 100 millimeter difference between the concealment and the maximum range of the secondaries, which means virtually every time you're spotted, your secondaries are in range to shoot at whatever is spotting you. That is not true, though, in World of Warships Legends, because, I suppose, of our commander builds. I could get the Schlieffen down to 12.6 kilometer concealment, but I would need to use both Kondo and Swirsky as inspirations, and so that would leave nothing for the secondaries. As such, I've compromised. I've used only Kondo as one inspiration, and I've used Hipper as the other. With this, the secondaries range out to 12.1 km, and the concealment is 12.9. So there's a 0.8 km gap between the maximum secondary range and the concealment, which is still very, very good. I'm certainly not complaining about it. I think the configuration on PC would be a little bit too strong for this game, so I understand why they nerfed it. And likewise, they nerfed the range of the Schlieffen's torpedoes. On PC, these are Elbing torpedoes with a 13.5 kilometer range. Here, they only range out to 6 kilometers. But still, even with these nerfs, this ship is really fun to play and a fantastic damage dealer. You can see that we've dealt quite a bit of damage, and we're going to deal quite a bit more before this game even ends. We're up to 112,000 done, and I think we're going to finish this game with around 180,000 damage done. Not, by the way, all from our main guns. This is sort of a symphony of German weaponry. All of the armaments are combining to create this nice damage total. The main guns, the secondaries, and the torpedoes. And of course, the secondaries, as you can see, are also being influenced by the Epic Secondary mod, which rapidly decreases their reload after every 50 hits. I think by the end of this game, we're going to have it fully activated. And when it is, this thing just absolutely shreds. These secondaries have the proper German penetration as well. 32, or rather quarter pen, which means at least the larger caliber secondary guns can penetrate 32 millimeters of armor, and this means that the majority of the time, when these secondaries are actually landing shots on targets, they are actually penetrating and they are actually doing damage. Plus, they're starting fires, which are burning and doing more damage. So these secondaries are fearsome. You certainly don't want to get caught in secondary range of a Schlieffen in practically anything for a long period of time, because they will absolutely melt you. I can't understate that. These secondaries are not fireworks. They're not just for show. They are wickedly effective, especially if you plop this secondary epic mod on them and increase their DPM even more. You can see them penetrating every time practically that they hit this Pommern in the superstructure. They're penning the other battleship out there, and really there's only 2 battleships left to go in this game. This is, of course, a one-sided sweep, sort of a result I don't normally like to show, but that's all going to be down to the CV. The CV on our side played a really, really good game. He stayed over this cap with myself and the destroyer, helped us spot it. Meanwhile, my teammates on the other side chased the enemy CV into the corner of the map, and the entire enemy team came down this way, possibly to just try and fight my Schlieffen. Obviously, nobody really has this ship right now, so it does get focused a lot when I take it out, and I think these guys were just coming in to try and get it. But so long as you play the Schlieffen carefully, because the armor is not, after all, the most robust protection you could get in a battleship, then this thing can deal a lot of damage. You certainly can't go, like, guns blazing, balls to the wall, pushing out like a conventional German battleship. You do have to play this ship with a little bit of care and concern for your hit points, and I often find it's best to play this and the entire line pointed away from the threat so that they are pushing into you, and you can increase the distance from them as they push in while your secondaries, torps, and main guns fire at them. It's a ship I like a lot, though. Not too thrilled about how you have to actually obtain it by paying for the Bureau project, but a very fun ship I'm looking forward to permanently adding to my fleet. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.